One of the best parts of watching basketball at either the college level or any level before the players reach the professionals is being able to get an early look at the next generation of talent. When a player starts to show off elite potential at an early age like this, fans and analysts alike all love to give their take on how good they think they can become, and oftentimes they like to throw out a comparison to a player either currently playing or from the past that they remind them of. These comparisons are usually pretty flattering, with names of all-time greats and all-stars often getting used as examples, but on other occasions, the analysts go the opposite direction and downplay how good they think a prospect will be, using a comparison of a role player or a bad player, which brings us to the topic of today's video. Today we'll be going through 6 current big-time players that at the time of the draft got fairly disrespected by the analysts based on who they were compared to and have now exceeded those expectations. Before we start though, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player that drew comparisons to someone that severely undervalued their potential and as a result got disrespected is Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz, whose comparison on draft night was to Norman Powell. Now, first off, I just want to say that Norman Powell is a very solid rotation player for the tough Raptors team now, but quite simply, Mitchell is much better, and another thing that you have to remember is that prior to the major breakout Powell had this season, he really wasn't that much of an impact guy back in 2017 when the comparison was made, so essentially, the people that made this comparison didn't really expect Mitchell to be much more than a decent bench option at best. I guess I can see some of the similarities that they saw in them, that both Norman and Donovan are explosive athletes at the shooting guard position while being slightly undersized, but in every other way, Mitchell is a much more productive and well-rounded player. Mitchell's an explosive scorer, a dynamic shot creator off the dribble capable of taking on the toughest of defenders, and he's been a #1 option for a playoff team all 3 years of his career. Mitchell has averaged over 20 points per game all 3 of those years as well. His scoring has increased every season, and when he heats up, there's almost no stopping him. Norman's a good player and one of the better comparisons we'll see in this video, yet it still drastically undersold Mitchell's capability. The next player whose comparison undersold their potential is John Collins of the Atlanta Hawks, who was compared to Chris Wilcox and Damian Jones on draft night. Wilcox is a player who played from 2003 to 2013, and at his best, he was a decent starting big man, but outside of 2 seasons averaging double-digit points and grabbing rebounds at an average rate, he was a bench player and a journeyman who wasn't exactly a big-time playmaker. Damian Jones, on the other hand, was a guy who sat at the end of the bench back in 2017, barely playing at all, and now, funnily enough, he's a backup in Atlanta playing alongside John Collins. Collins being compared to 2 minimal impact players and going on to blow those expectations away only 3 years in should be very humbling to those supposed experts, because Collins is one of the most promising young players in the league right now. This past season, he put up an impressive 22 points and 10 rebounds per game, and most importantly, his efficiency is ridiculously impressive, shooting 58% from the field and 40% from 3. His 3-point shot development has been the best part of his growth, and needless to say, neither of the players he was compared to had any kind of jumper at all. Collins has a lot of the tools NBA teams want in their front court today, and quite simply, Chris Wilcox and Damian Jones did not. The next player who had some pretty underwhelming player comparisons on draft night is Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors, who was compared to Jordan Mickey and Luc Mbah a Moute. Mbah a Moute is a journeyman in the league who has served as a defensive specialist on several teams over the last 11 years off the bench, but Mickey was a bench warmer who only lasted 3 seasons in the NBA from 2016 to 2018. Needless to say, Siakam has not only outperformed expectations set on him from the time of the draft, but the styles of play between him and those he was compared to aren't even accurate in the slightest. Siakam possesses an ability to handle the ball, get out and put pressure on opponents in transition, transition and attack mismatches that have made him one of the most unique power forwards in the league right now, and he's improved immensely every season as a pro. He played a vital role last season in helping Toronto bring home their first ever championship. He's now a #1 scoring option and premier two-way player, and that makes him far surpass anything the players he was compared to by a wide margin. The next player that had some pretty questionable comparisons made to him on draft night is Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat, who was compared to Markieff Morris and Tristan Thompson. Again, this is one of the more tame comparisons in this video because both Thompson and Morris have proven to be solid role players on teams that have won a bunch of games, but the issue here is that Bam in his 3rd season is already surpassing what either of them have done as an individual. Morris is a solid power forward with a good offensive skill set, a nice all-around scoring package, and decent defense and rebounding, and Thompson has pretty much been a rebounding specialist who always plays hard and crashes the glass to create second chance opportunities. Adebayo, on the other hand, was just named an all-star, is an all-defensive level talent, is genuinely one of the best passing big men in the entire NBA, and all around, he just brings a lot more to the table than either of the other players he was compared to. He does have some of the same features as Morris and Thompson, but at the same time, comparing him to them drastically undersold just how good he would have been able to become. Next up for discussion is Montrezl Harrell of the Los Angeles Clippers, because on draft night, he was compared to J.J. Hickson, who was someone who had a few solid seasons in the NBA and was once viewed as a player with good promise because of his physical and athletic tools, but while he flamed out and never reached that potential, Montrez has done the opposite. Harrell was a 2nd-round pick in 2015, so it's not that unreasonable that he compared to someone like Hickson, but the point of this video is to point out players that have proven these comparisons wrong regardless of how reasonable they seemed at the time, so he's undoubtedly fit this category. Harrell is one of the best bench players in the NBA right now and is one of the heavy favorites to win the 6th Man of the Year award, and on many teams he would be a go-to option and starter. He has a ridiculous motor and he attacks the basket and glass as hard as anybody, and in the pick and roll, he works as well as anyone. And finally, the last player we'll be discussing that definitely got a bit disrespected by the experts on draft night is Malcolm Brogdon of the Indiana Pacers, who was compared to Keith Bogans and Jason Granger on draft night. Now, first of all, Granger never ended up even playing a single game in the NBA, so right off the bat, you can't really argue that the comparison was made in good faith, but even the Bogans one seems ridiculous looking back. Bogans was a career bench player, a very inconsistent scorer of the basketball, someone who struggled with efficiency, and for his career only averaged 6 points per game. Brogdon, on the other hand, is a Rookie of the Year winner, a very underrated floor general, a starter for a playoff team, and a much more productive player at the point guard position. In fact, Brogdon is even a member of the rare 50-40-90 club, so while Bogans struggled mightily with his efficiency, Brogdon has proven to be on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. Brogdon may not be a star like some of the other players that we've discussed in this video, but he's been a very valuable member of every team he's been on, and brings well-balanced production all around. All of these guys have certainly exceeded any expectations people had for them at the time they were drafted, and now looking back, we can't help but laugh at how wrong these comparisons were. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think these guys play like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.